There.
There you go.
It's light work, period. Light work.
Jasmine Walker.
Joshua Primo. Herbert Jones.
Here's the kick. And we're underway. Jamison Williams from a yard deep. He's got running room. Spun around. Breaks the tackle. He's on his way. He's going to bring it back 101 yards. Touchdown, Alabama.
And that's how it started, a 100-yard kickoff return by Jamison Williams to open the game for the Crimson Tide against the Golden Eagles of Southern Miss under the lights at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Roll Tide and welcome to Tide TV this week. I'm Roger Hoover, joined by Kira Goldstein. Kira, that was just the first of many big plays for Alabama last Saturday.
Yeah, such a fun game to watch and a very impressive showing for the Crimson Tide.
Well, Jamison Williams didn't just stop at one kickoff return for a touchdown, he had two, plus an 81-yard touchdown reception. A great game for Williams and a great win at home for the Crimson Tide.
Let's take an all-access look at Alabama's 63-14 win over Southern Miss.
Williams wants to bring it out. Got a seam, got speed, got touch at the 35, but stayed up. What a way to start the game.
He's going to bring it back 101 yards. Touchdown, Alabama.
Action, swing, and that is intercepted off the carom. Picked up by DeMarco Helms. On 3rd and 8 to the end zone, Billingsley. Beautiful catch for a touchdown.
Touchdown, Alabama. Jaleel Billingsley into the corner of the end zone.
Try it again. And this time he's in. Roydell Williams with the touchdown plunge. Bryce Young wanting to go deep. And he's got him! Jamison Williams eating up the yardage again. 81-yard reception. Young steps up, throws on the run. Nice move by McClellan. Touchdown, Alabama. He's going to go deep into the end zone, and it's caught by Baker. 24-yard touchdown strike. End zone shot. Touchdown, Cameron Latu. Second of the night. Play action has been near perfection for Alabama tonight. Here's a playmaker, Jamison Williams again. On the run again. Down the sideline. It's his second kickoff return for a score of the night.
Another win for the Crimson Tide and another win over an unranked opponent. That's something that Coach Saban has done since he's been at Alabama. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. You can look around college football, see unranked teams upset top 25 teams all the time, but that really hasn't happened to the Crimson Tide.
Roger that. That 63-14 win over Southern Miss was the 100th consecutive victory over an unranked opponent for the Crimson Tide under Coach Saban. The Tide hasn't lost to an unranked opponent since Coach Saban's first season as head coach of the Crimson Tide back in 2007.
Alabama also continues to lead the nation in home winning percentage, improving to 279, 54-3, with a winning percentage of 843.
Very impressive.
An impressive win for the Crimson Tide and also a very good performance by Jamison Williams.
Yeah, Roger, not one but two kickoff returns for touchdown. That'll earn you SEC Special Teams Player of the Week. Williams became the first player in Alabama history to return two kickoffs for touchdown in the same game. Williams also became the first player in SEC history to have two kickoff returns for touchdown and a receiving touchdown in the same game. Williams had kickoff returns of 100 yards and 83 yards, and his receiving touchdown from Bryce Young measured 81 yards.
Huge breakout game for Williams, and as you would expect, Jameson Williams was also selected by Coach Saban and the Crimson Tide coaching staff as one of their players of the week. Williams was selected along with 6 of his teammates. Bryce Young led the Crimson Tide on offense as he completed 20 of 22 passes for 313 yards and 5 touchdowns. His 90% completion rate set a new Alabama record. The 5 touchdown passes tied for second most in Crimson Tide history. Along with Young, Roydale Williams was selected on offense as he rushed for a career best and team-high 110 yards on only 11 carries with a touchdown.
And over on defense, Will Anderson Jr. had a team-high 3 tackles for loss, a sack for a loss of 10 yards, and a quarterback hurry. Anderson now ranks second in the nation for tackles for loss on the season with 8.5. And Christian Harris tied Anderson for second on the team with 5 tackles. Harris also added a pass breakup and a quarterback hurry.
And joining Williams on special teams is Slade Bolden and Jalen Moody. Bolden threw several key blocks that helped Williams return those 2 kickoffs back for touchdowns. And also Moody made 1 stop on kickoff coverage to hold the Southern Miss returner to just 17 yards as he finished the game with 3 total tackles.
The kickoff time for next week's matchup with 15th-ranked Texas A&M was announced this week. The Tide and the Aggies will kick off under the lights at Kyle Field in College Station.
The game will be the nightcap of what is going to be a CBS doubleheader. Kickoff is scheduled for 7 o'clock, and then the game will be the 14th meeting between the 2 schools, with the Crimson Tide holding an 11-2 all-time advantage. That'll be a fun SEC West matchup between number 1 Alabama and number 15 Texas A&M next weekend. You know what else is going to be fun this past weekend, Kira? Watching all the former Crimson Tide players in the NFL.
Absolutely. Another big week for the Tide in the NFL and another big week for an Alabama rookie. Let's take a look at this week's Crimson Tide in the NFL Players of the Week. Najee Harris caught 14 passes for a team-high 102 yards as he set the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise record for the most receptions by a running back in a single game. Harris also added 40 yards rushing on 14 carries.
Trayvon Diggs had the play of the game for the Dallas Cowboys in their rout of the Philadelphia Eagles. Guarding former Alabama receiver Devontae Smith, Diggs jumped the route and intercepted the Jalen Hurts pass, took it back 59 yards for the pick 6. It was a pass from an Alabama quarterback to an Alabama receiver that was intercepted by an Alabama defensive back and returned for the touchdown. It was Diggs' 3rd interception in just 3 games this season.
There's something so beautiful about that. Those were our Crimson Tide in the NFL Players of the Week. Roger, big weeks from Najee Harris and Trayvon Diggs, but also big weeks for other guys too. Jalen Waddle had 12 catches and Derrick Henry rushed for over 100 yards.
Certainly love to see that. And defensively, C.J. Mosley had 10 tackles for the Jets. His teammate Quinnen Williams finished with 4 tackles, 1.5 sacks, plus a tackle for a loss. As Peyton Manning said on his Monday Night Football broadcast with his brother Eli, half the NFL went to Alabama. You can turn on any game and find some Alabama alums.
That's funny right there, Roger. He's not wrong.
He certainly isn't, as Peyton and Eli certainly had some fun with Coach Saban as well on Monday night. Coming up this weekend, Lane Kiffin and the 12th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels will come to Bryant-Denny Stadium to take on the number 1-ranked Crimson Tide. We'll have a full preview of the matchup coming up next.
Tide TV This Week is presented by the University of Alabama, where legends are made.
In a season of chaos,
you can tell they authentically play for each other.
Alabama does it. Absolute perfection.
How good can the Crimson Tide be again in 21?
It just doesn't show any sign of slowing down.
It's all about the process.
It's more than a buzz at Bryant-Denny.
This guy's not going anywhere. He doesn't just roll out great players. He and his staff develop them.
Bama's dominance shouldn't scare you. It should energize you.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. The Crimson Tide will have their first SEC home game of the season this Saturday in Bryant-Denny as Alabama welcomes Ole Miss to Tuscaloosa.
For a preview of this weekend's matchup between the Tide and the Rebels, our Christopher England joins us now.
It's a SEC West showdown as number 1 Alabama welcomes the 12th-ranked Ole Miss Rebels to Bryant-Denny on Saturday. Alabama leads the all-time series 56-10 and have won 5 in a row over the Rebels, including a 63-48 win over the Rebels in Oxford last season. To preview this weekend's matchup between the number 1 Crimson Tide and the 12th-ranked Rebels, I'm joined by former NFL and Alabama quarterback John Parker Wilson. JP, it's going to be a fun one in Bryant-Denny on Saturday night, isn't it?
I'm telling you what, this is a big game. Huge matchup with a lot of implications on the line. with where the SEC West is right now. Still early in the season, Alabama going to its 5th game, but a lot of fireworks coming from the Ole Miss side.
Ole Miss is undefeated at 3-0. However, they haven't played a top 25 opponent yet, with their 3 wins coming over Louisville, Austin Peay, and Tulane. John Parker, just how good is this Ole Miss team?
They're fantastic. They really are. They can run it. They can throw it. They get a really dynamic quarterback that's a dual threat guy, leading right now in the Heisman campaign. So you couple that with Lane Kiffin and his ability to call plays and keep things different and fresh, I think they've got a lot going for them right now. And you just look at how many points they scored last year against Alabama, 48. I think they've gotten better since then.
Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral, as you said, he's one of the Heisman front runners. He leads the SEC and is 3rd in the nation in total offense at 385 yards per game, with over 50 of those being on the ground. The Alabama defense, they had a little trouble at times stopping Emory Jones in the Florida game. Plus, Ole Miss likes to run a lot of plays, fast tempo. What does Pete Golding and the Crimson Tide defense need to do to slow down Corral in this Ole Miss offense?
I think the biggest thing this week for Alabama's defense is really pre-snap. It's getting set, it's getting lined up, adjusting to what Ole Miss is showing us, and just being in the right place before the ball snap. Because I think once the ball snapped, we've got the athletes to take over. But if we can't recognize what they're trying to do before the ball snap, then we're out of position. And that's when you get blown coverages and big plays. So we've got to avoid that this week.
We've talked about Matt Corral and the Ole Miss offense, but, Bryce Young is looking pretty good, too. 20 of 22 last week, could have been 21 of 22. He had 5 touchdowns. How impressed have you been with Bryce and how this offense has played so far?
He keeps getting better and better each week, continuing to mature and grow. I think they're continuing to expand the offense, and what a performance he had last week. 20 of 22. I don't care if you're playing on air. That's getting it done. So he's got to keep that going this week, and I think really the ground attack coupled with the passing attack is what's really going to drive this offense. And also 2 tight ends right now, Cameron Latu and Jaleel Billings are really coming on. I think it's adding depth and expanding our offense that we've seen, each week getting bigger and bigger in the playbook.
The Tide, they're 18th in the nation in total defense, while Ole Miss is 59th. Do you feel like the Alabama defense is a little better than the Ole Miss defense, and will the Tide be able to slow down the Rebels a little more than the Rebels can slow down Bryce Young and the Alabama offense?
I sure hope so. I think this defense this year has been tested. We've just grown on defense. We've continued to get better. Now this is going to be the biggest test of the year probably for this defense and going against Lane Kiffin. So I think our guys are moving in the right direction and had a really efficient game against Southern Miss. And that's what it's going to take this week.
All right, John Parker, a couple of quick questions. Do you think Ole Miss will kick to Jamison Williams this week?
Whew. After watching the tape last week, they've got to think twice about it if they do. The kickoff is interesting. Southern Miss tried to do the pooch kick on the second kickoff touchdown for him. He saw what they were doing. He cheated up and then caught it full speed. So unless you've got a kicker that can kick it out of the back of the end zone, he's going to get a chance. And I think even if he's 5 or 6 yards deep, he's going to give it a go. I think just with the confidence that they have on special team and the speed that he possesses.
What is your one key to the game for the Crimson Tide?
Efficiency. It's problem at Florida was a lot of pre-snap penalties, not getting set on offense. That really hurt a lot of drives on defense. It was some blown coverages, and it's not athleticism. It's just doing your job and being efficient when you do it. And it's going to come down to that. And obviously this game was many points that everybody thinks is going to be scored. 1, even two turnovers are going to be extremely costly. If hopefully we can be on the receiving end of that. Our defense has done pretty well this year of creating those turnovers, and Bryce has really held onto the ball extremely well so far.
Just a quick fact, JP. Lane Kiffin has never beaten Alabama as the head coach, and Coach Saban is 23-0 against his former assistants.
Let's keep it going. I like that streak, and 24 sounds even better. I think we got a good chance. We got a good team, and we've been tested this year, which, like you said in the opening, Ole Miss really hadn't. They hadn't played on the road yet, and they haven't played any ranked teams. So I think we've got a lot of confidence going in this game.
Well, thank you for the insight, John Parker.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Kickoff in Bryant-Denny between number 1 Alabama and 12th ranked Ole Miss is set for 2:30 Central Time. The game will be televised on CBS. You can listen to John Parker Wilson, Eli Gold, and the rest of the Crimson Tide Sports Network crew online and on the radio beginning at 11:30. Stay with us. We'll have more Tide TV this week coming up next.
Tide TV This Week is presented by Ford. For great offers on F-150, see your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Crimson Tide.
What you do every day matters. At Alabama, it's our process that yields legendary results. This is where ideas forge innovation, dreams unleash opportunities, and contenders become champions. How far do you want to go? The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Welcome back to Tide TV This Week. I'm Kira Goldstein, joined by my co-host, Roger Hoover. Roger, the Alabama soccer team held their first home SEC matchup this past Thursday night at the Alabama Soccer Stadium.
Crimson Tide welcomed the Missouri Tigers as Alabama went for its first SEC win of the season. It was a scoreless first half, but Alabama got on the scoreboard first as Jessica Skorka passed to Raina Reyes, who found Kate Henderson in the box. She drilled it to the back of the net past the Mizzou goalie, making it 1-0 Crimson Tide. Missouri tied the game just 14 seconds later, but the Crimson Tide answered. In the 84th minute on the give and go between Riley Tanner and Ashlyn Sarepka. Sarepka leads Tanner toward the goal and she finishes it off for the game winner. A big win for the Crimson Tide as Alabama defeated Missouri 2-1 for their first SEC win of the season.
After picking up that win over Mizzou on Thursday, Alabama traveled to Nashville for a Sunday afternoon matchup against the Vanderbilt Commodores. Unfortunately, the Tide came up short as Vandy won 3-0.
And also in Nashville, the Alabama women's golf team continued their great start to the fall season with a second-place finish at the Mason Rudolph Championship this past weekend in Middle Tennessee. The Tide shot a 12 under par, 852 tournament total, their lowest team score of the regular season since 2018. Vendetta Moresco and Polly Mack both finished in the top 10, while Angelica Moresco finished 17th. Oregon won at 26 under par, with Alabama taking second place ahead of 6 other Southeastern Conference teams.
A second-place finish and a fourth-place finish. Not a bad start for Mick Potter's squad.
First-year head coach Margot Geer got an outstanding performance from her squad in the season opener for swimming, as Alabama swept Delta State in dominating fashion, with the men winning 223-72 and the women coming out on top 217-78.
Before we go to break, let's take a look at the highlights of the Tide season opening win over the Statesmen.
You can tell they authentically play for each other.
Alabama does it. Absolute perfection.
How good can the Crimson Tide be again in 21?
It just doesn't show any sign of slowing down.
It's all about the process.
It's more than a buzz at Bryant Denny.
This guy's not going anywhere.
He doesn't just roll out great players. He and his staff develop them.
Bama's dominance shouldn't scare you. It should energize you.
Welcome back. The Alabama women's tennis team opened the season this past weekend at the Ole Miss Invite in Oxford.
The Crimson Tide competed against players from Georgia, Kansas State, and Ole Miss during the 3-day event.
Ludmila Binchek had a big weekend for the Crimson Tide as she defeated the 114th ranked player from Kansas State on day 1. On day 2, Binchek and Anne-Marie Heiser won their doubles match 6-0 over their opposition from Ole Miss.
And on day 3, Binchek and Heiser won another doubles match, this time over a duo from Kansas State. Binchek also defeated the 27th ranked player in the country from Ole Miss 6-4 and 6-3. In all, the Tide picked up 4 singles wins against the Rebels and a doubles victory against Kansas State on the final day.
Alabama returns to action on Monday at the ITA All-American Championships in Charleston, South Carolina.
For more on the Alabama women's tennis team as they start their season, let's hear from head coach Jenny Mines.
I'm really excited about this year's team. We've got a great group of girls. You can already tell that they're gelling and the chemistry is good. We did a lot of Zoom calls through the summer to get to know each other and kind of start and build relationships and not just, just kind of beyond the greetings. But it's a great group of girls. They're already working hard. They're doing captain's practices. We have 4 returners this year. We have Anne-Marie Heiser, Sydney Orfis, Ludmila Bencic, and Anna Parcamento. And something interesting, last year we made the NCAA tournament, and in the NCAAs we started 4 freshmen. So I think those 4 freshmen are back in the lineup. So I think that's really exciting to see what we can, what we learned and what we achieved last year and kind of build on that. I think it's going to be fun. We've got 4 that have great experience from last year, and then we've got the 4 new ones, and they're working hard right now to kind of build that new relationship for the new season. Well, I think we ran out of time last year. We had a great season. We were playing our best tennis at the end. And, again, some obstacles with COVID, as I know everybody kind of encountered, but I felt like we still had a lot of room for improvement at the end of the season. And I also think there was that bit of excitement of, okay, we made the NCAA tournament this year. Next year, we want to be playing, further into May. We want to get some players into the singles and doubles portion. So I think they saw that and they realized that a lot of hard work and a lot of experience that we can do that. So I'm really optimistic about this team, and I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged with the way they're working together already, and we just started.
What you do every day matters. At Alabama, it's our process that yields legendary results. This is where ideas forge innovation, dreams unleash opportunities, and contenders become champions. How far do you want to go? The University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Play to the center and gets a return feed, an opportunity for the Tide, and she puts it in the back of the net.
Jamison Williams from a yard deep, cuts left, up the mid, breaks the tackle. He's going to bring it back 101 yards. Touchdown, Alabama. Price loads up, looks long, has Jamison behind the defense. See ya, 81 yards. Here's the kick, taken by Jamison Williams on the run of the 20, 25, 30. His second kickoff return of the day. Touchdown, Alabama.
Those were our ATI Plays of the Week. Now let's take a look at our Players of the Week, brought to you by Legacy of Hope.
Bendetta Moresco led the Crimson Tide throughout their tournament at the Mason Rudolph Challenge, recording a 1 over par 73 in the final round for a 5 under par 211 tournament total. Just a sophomore, Moresco tied for 7th place to mark her 2nd straight top 15 finish to begin the year.
Very impressive. Quarterback Bryce Young was near perfect in directing the Crimson Tide offense in their 63-14 win over Southern Miss. Young set a school record for completion percentage in a single game as he finished 20 of 22 for 313 yards with 5 touchdowns.
And Jamison Williams set records as well. He became the first player in Alabama history to return 2 kickoffs for touchdowns as he took the opening kickoff all the way back for the score, 100 yards. And then later in the game, he did it again. This time, Williams returned the kickoff 83 yards for the touchdown. Williams became the first player in SEC history to return 2 kickoffs for a touchdown and having a receiving touchdown as he outraced everybody down the sideline for an 81-yard touchdown reception from Bryce Young.
Congratulations to our Legacy of Hope Players of the Week. A couple of record-setting performances for the Crimson Tide this week.
No doubt, in Alabama against Ole Miss coming up this Saturday. We'll recap for you that game next week as we bring you more on the Crimson Tide and plus the all-access content on Alabama you can't get anywhere else. See you next week, everyone. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
This has been a presentation from Learfield,